Hey, what's up guys? Combat Critic here. Let's take a look at this main event of UFC 294, which is the fight between the champion Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira. So let's get started. If we look at the records of these two fighters, starting with the champion, Islam has 25 fights and he's won 24 of his 25 fights, lost just one. If we talk about his 24 wins, he has 4 wins via knockout, 11 wins via submission, and 9 wins via decision. If we talk about his one loss, he has lost via knockout before. Now let's talk about the challenger, Charles DoBronx Oliveira. So Oliveira has 44 fights. He's won 34 of his 44 fights, lost 9, and he also has one no contest on his record. If we talk about his 34 wins, he has 10 wins via knockout, 21 wins via submission, and 3 wins via decision. Pretty exciting fighter to watch. Most of his wins have been finishes. If we talk about his 9 losses, he has been knocked out 4 times and he has also been submitted 4 times and he has lost via decision just once. Now let's talk about the physical and career statistics of both these guys, starting with the height. So height is 5 feet 10 for Islam Makhachev and it is also 5'10 for Charles Oliveira. Weight is even at 155 pounds. Unless somebody misses weight, I don't think either of these fighters should miss weight, considering this is a title fight, even though Charles Oliveira has missed weight before. Reach is 70 inches for Islam and it is 74 inches for Charles Oliveira. So Oliveira will have a 4-inch reach advantage. If we talk about the stance, Islam is of southpaw. Islam has a southpaw stance, whereas Charles Oliveira has an orthodox stance. Talking about the age, so both these guys are pretty young. Islam is younger by about 2 years, but I don't think age will play any role in this fight. Now let's jump into the career statistics, starting with the strikes landed per minute. So this signifies the number of significant strikes that you land on your opponent per minute on average. This is 2.35 for Islam Makhachev and it is 3.54 for Charles Oliveira. So clear advantage here goes to Charles Oliveira. He is landing a lot more significant strikes on his opponents per minute compared to Islam. Next up, we have the striking accuracy, which is 59% for Islam Makhachev and it is 53% for Charles Oliveira. So here the advantage actually goes to Islam. He is more accurate with his strikes. Next up, we have the strikes absorbed per minute. This signifies the number of significant strikes that you absorb from your opponents per minute on average. This is 1.27 for Islam Makhachev and it is 3.19 for Charles Oliveira. So Charles Oliveira gets hit quite a lot. In this case, the guy with the lower number has an advantage because he is getting hit lesser. So here the advantage goes to Islam Makhachev. Next up, we have the striking defense, which is 61% for Islam. And if we look at Charles, it is 51%. So again, a clear advantage here goes to Islam Makhachev. He is a better defensive striker. Now let's talk about the wrestling, grappling, and BJJ statistic, starting with the takedown average. This is 3.24 for Islam Makhachev and it is 2.32 for Charles DoBronx Oliveira. So both these guys are good wrestlers, but here the advantage goes to Islam. Takedown accuracy is 62% for Islam and it is 40% for Charles Oliveira. So again, the advantage here goes to Islam. Takedown defense is 90% for Islam, which is really good. And if we compare it to Charles Oliveira, this is 55%. So again, the advantage in the takedown defense department goes to Islam. Next up, we have the submission average, which is 1.1 for Islam Makhachev and it is 2.7 for DoBronx Oliveira. So this is where he has an advantage. DoBronx is the better BJJ guy in this fight. Now let's take a look at the significant strikes by position for both these guys, starting with the champion. So 52% of all the strikes that Islam lands are from the standing position, 20% on from the clinch and 28% on the ground. So this man is well diversified. He is landing equal number of strikes in the clinch and on the ground. Now let's compare it with Charles Oliveira. 57% of all the strikes that Charles throws are from the standing position, 21% from the clinch and 22% on the ground. So both these guys are pretty similar in terms of their significant strikes by position. They both like to strike from the clinch as well as on the ground. Now let's take a look at the significant strikes by target, starting with the champion. So 69% of all the strikes that Islam throws are to the head, 27% to the body, and just 4% to the leg. Islam does not really use leg kicks in his game. Now let's take a look at Charles Oliveira. 58% of all his strikes are to the head, 27% to the body. This is same as Islam. And if we talk about leg kicks, 14% to the leg. So Charles Oliveira uses leg kicks a little bit more in his game compared to Islam Makhachev. In Islam, mostly goes to the head or to the body. Now let's take a look at the previous fights of these two guys, starting with the champion. So Islam, who is on a huge winning streak right now, in his last fight he beat Alexander Volkanovski via unanimous decision. This fight happened in February of this year, and this was a 5-round main event fight. Islam looked human in this fight and he got hit by Alexander Volkanovski. Alexander Volkanovski out-wrestled Islam Makhachev in this fight, and I think this fight really humanized him. And after this fight, Islam said that he needs to improve more. I think after this fight, he must be training like a madman because he was embarrassed slightly in this fight by Alexander Volkanovski in his own department, which is wrestling. However, if we talk about the fight before that, Islam beat Charles Oliveira, and this happened via submission arm triangle choke in the second round, and this fight happened in October of last year. If you look at the first round of this fight, Islam beat Charles Oliveira even in the first round, and in the second round he got a knockdown, and then from that knockdown he was able to get a submission win. I think this rematch favors Islam because of the mental advantage that he has. Looking back, what he did in the first fight to Charles Oliveira. If we talk about the fight before that, Islam beat Bobby Green via TKO punches in the very first round. He also beat Dan Hooker via Kimura also in the first round. Beat Thiago Moises via rear naked choke in the fourth round. He beat Drew Dober via arm triangle choke, very similar to the choke he pulled on Oliveira. This happened in the third round. Before that, he beat Devi Ramos via unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. He beat Arman Sarukian also via unanimous decision in a 3-round fight. So this man is looking unstoppable. He is, I believe, 31 years old. He is in his prime. Now let's take a look at Charles Oliveira's record. So Charles Oliveira in his last fight beat Beneil Dariush. A lot of people were picking Beneil to win this fight. Beneil was actually the favorite to win this fight. However, Charles Oliveira TKO'd him in the very first round, and this fight happened in June of this year, so he is really not taking a lot of time off and coming back to fight Islam Makhachev, who beat him once last year. If you talk about the fight before that, this was the fight where Islam beat him to become the lightweight champion, and Oliveira was looking good in the initial stages of the fight. However, Islam took him down in the first round and won the round. In the second round, Oliveira tried to be flashy. He tried to, attempt a jumping knee on Islam. Islam dodged it and landed a hook, and that knocked down Charles. And finally, Islam was able to get that submission win. I think this is a problem with Charles. His chin is not very good. If you strike with him and if you manage to touch his chin, he will likely go down. If we talk about the fight before that, Charles Oliveira beat Justin Gaethje via rear naked choke in the very first round. This was a good fight between both these guys. Before this fight, he also beat Dustin Poirier via rear naked choke in the third round. He beat Michael Chandler via TKO in the second round. In these fights, Charles Oliveira was knocked down in quite a few of these fights, and the thing with these guys is they do not want to engage in the grappling with Charles Oliveira because he has some really good submissions, but Islam Makhachev is a guy who is not afraid to go on the ground, and this is the difference between him and all the other guys that Oliveira has fought. If we talk about the fight before that, Charles Oliveira beat Tony Ferguson via unanimous decision. This was an out of prime Tony, and this was a 3-round fight, pretty heartbreaking to watch. Before this, he beat Kevin Lee via guillotine choke, completely dominated him on the feet, and got the guillotine choke when Kevin was shooting for a takedown. This happened in the third round. So if I have to pick a winner of this fight, I think I'm gonna go with the guy who won last time, which is Islam Makhachev. I think he is in his prime right now. He does not have a lot of holes in his game. And the thing with Charles Oliveira is his takedowns, and these BJJ guys don't really work a lot on their wrestling. And we have seen how in the wrestling and the grappling department, it favors Islam Makhachev. The only clear advantage that Charles DoBronx has is in his BJJ. I think he is a bit better BJJ guy, but even on the feet, the defensive striking favors Islam Makhachev. I think he is a phenomenal defensive striker. His striking is basic, but it's really effective. We have seen this in the Volkanovski fight, and Volkanovski is a really good striker. For these reasons, I'm picking him to win this fight. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next video.